Hi, I'm Alan Day, CEO and founder of State of Flux, and welcome to The Power of Three, a video series where we interview leading chief procurement officers and executives about three things that have influenced their careers. From books to bosses, from music to movies, we explore the three things that have shaped their success. Join us as we learn from the best of the business here on The Power of Three. Hi, welcome to The Power of Three, and I'm thrilled to have Ninian Wilson here today as my guest. I was working out earlier that it's been 24 years that we've worked together, which is definitely showing our age, Ninian. Been a lot of fun over that time. So I'm going to hand it over to Ninian to introduce himself. So three roles that he's had and three things that he'd like to be known for. Ninian, welcome.
Fantastic, Alan. I didn't realise it was 24 years since we met in the Dorking office, second floor corner office, on a big strategic sourcing project. And you'd literally arrived, I think, that day from New Zealand or the day before. So, but our relationship has grown ever since. So thank you for the opportunity. So for those of you who don't know me, my name is Ninian Wilson, and I'm the Group Director of Sourcing here at Vodafone, or the CEO of the Vodafone Procurement Company based here in Luxembourg. And today of all days, I was just saying to Alan, we've got 23 degrees and sunshine outside, so it's a good day.
Excellent. Thanks, Ninian. So we met when you were working with Transco, but I'm really curious at kind of, because you've been pretty inspiring as a CPO, if I may say that, over the years, and you've had a variety of roles, but what are the three roles that have stood out for you as kind of the key roles that have shaped you in your career?
I think, Alan, the first Chief Procurement Officer role which I secured at Cable and Wireless was, I was very young. I was only in the mid-30s, 33-ish, I think, to get a CPO role of a FTSE listed company. And I had a great team working with me during a very difficult period. So I think that shapes you in terms of resilience. So that was the first role that shaped me, I think. The second one was probably the time when I moved to Royal Mail and I became Operations Director. So running the postal delivery service for the UK with a huge number of staff, so 160,000 staff. And I think in that job, you learn very quickly what you're good at, what you're not so good at, and actually what you want to do in life and what roles really suit you. And for me, that helped shape I really want to go back into procurement because I love procurement, not necessarily operations. So that was the second one. And the third role, I guess, is the roles I've been doing here at Vodafone, because it was working in a different context, i.e. moving to a different country, building relationships in that country, and now being here for 14 years at Vodafone in a number of different roles. So for me, those are the three things that shaped my kind of outlook and career, yeah.
And during that, because you've had a reputation of kind of a change agent, being at the forefront of procurement, but what are the three things that you would like to be known for when you kind of stand back towards the end of a glittering career, shall I say?
Well, firstly, it's not yet.
Not that I'm putting you into retirement.
I'm still young. So I think, first of all, I think it'd be good to be remembered for leading on digitalisation of procurement. Whether I am or not, you can take a view, right? But that whole digital-led transformation of the procurement operations, way back from kind of e-auctions back in Cable and Wireless days, up to digital and autonomous sourcing now, which we're doing here in Vodafone. Second thing, I'd like to be known as a leader who sets high standards for the quality of work and expectations on quality, but also cares for the people in the department. I think it's very important that you lead with high standards, but if someone gets into trouble, whether it's health or whatever, that you care. I think it's important that we all care a little bit more in this world where some people don't care, clearly. I think it's important for leaders to do that. And then finally, I want to be known, Alan, as you know, for renovating an old 1736 castle in the west coast of Scotland that's not finished, but I really want to be known for finishing it in another 5 years' time, or however long it takes. That's probably the three things.
Awesome. Yes. I, I won't say I lost some money on how quickly you bought up the castle, Ninian, but I'm glad you did, and I'm sure we're going to touch on that going forward. But yes, I know as someone who's kind of worked alongside you, with you, for you over the years, you've had an amazing career. But so really, what I'm hoping today is we can start to drill into some of the things that make you tick and the influences throughout that career. So I'm going to start off with 3 books that you've read that have really had an impact and shaped you going forward, or that you've just enjoyed and recommend.
Yeah, it's a really good question, because I'm not a huge book person, Alan, right? I usually, like many people, I suppose, I get a lot of my input from reading short papers or watching TV, unfortunately, or listening to other people talk about their business and their leadership challenges. But I think 3 books that are probably formative. Probably the first one I ever read was Treasure Island by Robert Louis Stevenson. It was kind of mandatory in school in Scotland. You had to read Treasure Island. And I loved the whole romance of the book, the whole thing about going away, searching for something, going to a foreign island, finding something. And it still kind of sticks with me, that sense of adventure. So that's certainly one. There's a bit of a Scottish theme coming here as well, just so we're clear, Alan, right? Second book, completely different, Train Spotting, which will become the very famous film with Ewan McGregor et al. In it, and really for the grittiness of life when things just don't go well. And that, if you read that book, it's a very difficult book to read, and became a great movie, obviously, and some great catchphrases in it, which I won't go through because there's a little bit of swearing in it, but some great catchphrases around, where I'm from, being Scottish, born in Edinburgh, where the book is set in Edinburgh. And then the final one, and there's many others that I've read on holiday. You know what? I just love Harry Potter. And I love the initial Harry Potter because, again, I love the romance of the wizarding nation and all that kind of stuff, and making things that are impossible possible. So I really like those kind of 3 books, yeah.
And I'm glad there's a good Scottish theme running through all of them.
There is, with J.K. Rowling as the author, yeah. So
yeah, exactly. So yeah, very good. So and you touched on Train Spotting, and of course, very famous movie. I haven't yet built up the courage to show that to my 15-year-old, but it is on the list to do. But let's use that to kind of just touch on, say, the 3 movies that you've either enjoyed or have inspired you throughout.
Yeah, and again, really difficult. I was looking through sort of the DVD collection, my old DVD collection. Obviously, you've got Netflix now and new tech as well. And I was thinking of the 3 movies which I can continually watch, right, and which I've watched more than once. And there's many which fit that bill, but probably 3. The first one was Star Wars. I love Star Wars, the original one, 1977, I think it came out, when me and you and Alan were only 1 year old, right? So let's try and just pretend we're a wee bit younger than we are.
Absolutely.
And it was one of the first movies I went to see by myself in Stirling. We were living in Stirling at the time, and I remember catching the bus in with a friend to go and watch Star Wars. And I was very young, and I managed to get in. I'm not quite sure how I got in, but I got in to see it. So Star Wars, I can watch again and again. Absolutely love it. Second movie for me is actually one. It's kind of, for a Scottish guy, a bit soppy. It's what we'd call a bit soppy for a Scottish guy, but it's Notting Hill. And again, I love Notting Hill.
Very good.
We used to, when we were a leadership team in Cable and Wireless, we used to go there for dinner. There was a little restaurant called E&O, which we used to go quite often in Notting Hill, which was just round the corner from the Blue Door, if you know the film.
I remember. I remember.
Yeah, and then there was the bookshop. Wasn't the bookshop, but there was a bookshop, travel bookshop, just opposite. So I love that whole area of London, the level of diversity, the bohemian sort of attitudes around it. So, and it's just a bit different. It's like a little village, isn't it? Notting Hill's a village in London. So that's my second film with Hugh Grant and Julia Roberts, obviously. Third film, right up to date, super modern. Watched it 3 or 4 times. Watched it on the plane back from the Middle East day before yesterday. Top Gun. Just love it. Love Tom Cruise. Want to look like him when I'm 60. Still got all the black hair. I've got grey hair. I'm still 5 years younger. Just an amazing boys action movie, isn't it? I guess, right? So really enjoy it. I can just watch it again and again. So really enjoy that. That's probably
So just to clarify, you're talking about the latest
the latest
Top Gun
one.
as opposed to
The late Top
yes,
Gun Maverick, the new one. Yeah, not the original Top Gun with Tom Cruise and Kelly McGillis in it. Although I have watched that, and I watched that one before the new Maverick one came out. So I like them both.
Yeah. Excellent, yeah, and interestingly, I was talking to Alison Bartow, who's now chairwoman of SIPS, and Maverick was one of her or Top Gun Maverick was one of her 3 films as well.
Yeah,
so
and it's got a nice,
it's
got nice little hooks, Alan, back to the original film. If you've watched the original film, there's nice hooks back into it, yeah, which is really quite nice.
Yeah, it's brilliant, and I don't think they could have done it any better. It's funny you mentioned Star Wars, because I too remember that being one of my first films seeing, and back in those days there wasn't many film theatres in New Zealand, but the one that we did go to, the Civic Theatre, it's quite an experience with kind of Art Deco, kind of the way it's made, and our New Zealand office is now opposite
Amazing.
that theatre. So there's some quite interesting connections there.
I think it also it teaches you a little about business as well, because in this may be an urban legend, but I think, and I could be wrong, and people will correct me no doubt and say, Ninian, you got that completely wrong. But I think the term blockbuster came from Star Wars, because I think in America, when it first launched, and I could be completely wrong on this, but it was the first time a queue to see a movie had queued round the block. So it queued round the block, therefore became a blockbuster. And then you think of business models that have and haven't worked. And Blockbuster, when you used to hire your DVD, was a huge chain, and it's kind of gone, right? It's kind of completely gone.
It's completely gone. Yeah.
And technology has just changed that whole business model. So it's a great film, blockbuster, and business model. So I kind of link it to the three pieces there.
I like it. I like your segue. So on that, one of the things I'm curious is, you've been a great leader throughout, and I think of that cable and wireless team, and a lot of them are now CPOs around the globe. But what are 3 bosses that you've had that have kind of shaped you into the leader that you are today, really?
Yeah, I think I've got 3 names. One's probably more public than others, and one's in procurement. But if I start off with my first senior management position when I joined Transco, and I worked for someone called David Nimmo. And David was an incredible people manager. And David had real skill. And I remember going to David with a problem, and I took it through, and we went through and we had a chat. And at the end of it, or the end of the problem, or the next day, he said, Ninian, I always knew you knew the answer. My job was just to help you think it through. And I really love that piece around that management capability, just help you think it through, because you will get to the answer. So David Nimmo, incredible manager, incredible person. Loved working with David, for David. Second one, I had the privilege to work for someone called Adam Crozier. Adam was the Chief Executive Officer of Royal Mail PLC, moved on to ITV in the UK, for those of you, and he did that Chief Executive for a while. Great person and super humble. I was late for the job interview, Alan. I was going, my goodness, this is a disaster. Got caught in London traffic getting to Old Street, half an hour late for the interview. I thought, listen, we're never going to get this job. And I went into Adam's office, and he could clearly see that I was late and I was apologetic and stuff. And he said, Ninian, would you like a cup of coffee? And I said, yeah. He said, how do you take it? I said, I take it white, just white coffee, please. It's fine, yeah. And he went off and he made it himself. Right? And it kind of blew me away, because I was thinking, this is a chief executive of a 200,000 plus company. I am half an hour late. His PA was sitting outside, and he went and made the coffee himself for me. And I just thought, I want to work with someone like this. Yeah. So that was that was great. So Adam was kind of number 2. Third one is sort of a little bit closer to home. I had the opportunity. I arrived in Vodafone, and I worked for Detlef Schultz. I'd been a CPO before, And I've been in Royal Mail, Chief Procurement Officer or Director of Sourcing, same in Cable and Wireless. And I came in as part of the management team. And he always made me feel super welcome. He challenged my thinking. He had tremendous experience. He'd worked in a number of different companies globally in different countries. And he brought a completely different aspect to my thinking. He was a tremendously empowering manager. And I remember we were going to the executive committee of Vodafone with the strategy. And he goes, do you want to go and do it? And I said, no, you can go and do it, Detlef. You're reading the function. You should go and do it. And he goes, no, you do it. And we had this argument about who was going to go. So not hierarchical at all, really empowering and just doing that. And obviously he's still the chairman of our board here in the Vodafone Procurement Company. And he always pushes us higher on performance and aspiration, which I just love. So each of those people bring different things. And Detlef brought a lot for me.
Well, it's interesting actually, and I've never really thought about it, but I talk about kind of, for us in State of Flux, in terms of the team, I want the humble perfectionist.
Yeah.
But actually, what you're talking about is exactly that, and those bosses that you've worked with and for, are humble perfectionists. And I suppose that's an interesting theme. I don't know whether that's kind of resonated or.
Yeah,
or you've thought about that?
I hadn't really thought about it, Alan. I think it's, at the end of the day, I'm just a wee boy from the west coast of Scotland, a small island, right? And I guess you never think you'll get as far in your career as you can get, right? So I was CPO at 34 or whatever it was. I was very fortunate and very lucky to get those opportunities. But I also, I don't think you must never lose sight of where you come from. And I'm still friends with a lot of people in school who've not got the same type of job I've got. They have different pressures, just as difficult pressures as I've got. But, they might be paid 25 grand and I'm paid a little bit more than 25 grand for what I do, So I think you can't lose sight of where you come from. I think my father also always sort of held a lid on things a little bit. And I think if you have to be arrogant, you can be there, but I don't like being there because that's not Ninian, right?
No.
And I think being a little bit more, maybe it's a Scottish thing, I don't know, or a West Coast Islander thing, I don't know. But it's, you can never forget where you come from, Alan, because it's important, because it shapes you. Yeah.
I 100% agree. 100%. So on that note, one of the things that I'm quite interested in is three quotes that you've kind of lived by, that sort of mean things to you throughout that journey, Ninian.
Yeah, it's a super one. I sit in lots of meetings and people throw quotes out and I go, my goodness, how do you remember all these quotes from different, people in history? I've got two or three which kind of resonate. The first one's from some guy called Abraham Lincoln, apparently a big guy in the States at some point in time. And he said, you can't predict the future, but you can create it. I really like that quote, yeah? Because it goes to around creating the future of procurement, creating the future of digital, creating the future of career paths for people. So I think difficult to predict the future, but you can create it. So I love that thinking around creating the future, because I think for procurement leaders, part of the job is to create the future for careers, for their people, for digital, etc. Mm-hmm. Second one, and I've got this, the Nelson Mandela great quote, the winner or a winner is a dreamer who never gives up. Yeah. And I love that one. We have a joint love of rugby, right? And I keep dreaming that Scotland will win something one day, right? So we won a couple of matches, but I think the whole emergence during my lifetime of a fairer South Africa and a leader who was so humble, Alan, right? How he led, you never have regrets in life. You can't have regrets in life, but imagine if I'd had the opportunity to meet him, that would be phenomenal. Now, I've met some people who've met him and they say he's just as humble in real life as books would portray, as films would portray, So what a great quote, yeah. What a great quote.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah. And then the final one, Steve Jobs. So he did kind of okay with a company that did fruit, as they said in Forrest Gump, yeah. And he said, the only way to do great work is to love what you do. You got to love what you do, right? And sometimes I listen to colleagues or friends or something say, oh, I hate my job. I don't like this, I don't like that. I don't like, well, for goodness sake, don't stay. You know what I mean? It's a really tough decision because it's easy to stay and not like something. But when I think you love what you do, you just do it better, Alan, right? You're more enthusiastic. You take a little bit more risk sometimes, which maybe I need to do more of, but you take more risk, you do more things, and you love what you do, right? So that would be my 3 quotes.
Yeah, well, and it's not a job, is it? It's just fun, which is pretty cool. Yeah. So that's really good. And to change things up even more, when you're relaxing, or maybe when you're getting kind of hyped up before a board meeting, before deadlift, what are kind of 3 music tracks that you listen to or would hold up as favourites in your Spotify list?
Super funny. I actually I had 3 songs when I was at university that I used to play just before I went into final exams. So final exams, and I'd play 3 songs, right? Those aren't the 3 songs I'd picked just now, but I think it was Billy Ocean, When the Going Gets Tough, the Tough Get Going. Remember that one, right? So that's an oldie but a goodie. Yeah. I had Eye of the Tiger. That's the motive, get up in the exams. And then Bob Marley, three Little Birds. Don't worry about a thing. Everything's going to be all right. I used to play those 3 songs religiously before every final exam in my final year. Because in my final year, before exams, I was travelling back up to Aberdeen and I got all my university notes for 4 years stolen. Everything stolen. Everything gone off the train. Including £200 worth of library books, which was annoying. But more annoying, when I went to see the police station, they said, "What have you lost, Mr. Wilson?" I said, "They've stolen my Aberdeen scarf, my Aberdeen top, my Aberdeen..." So I went through all my football stuff. And I said, "Oh yeah, and 4 years of university notes." So I used to play those. But 3 songs now for me. Big Country, In a Big Country. Theme tune for me. Absolutely love it. Romeo and Juliet by Dire Straits, which I really love that song. And then third, a song called Dignity by Deacon Blue, which kind of resonate. Saw Deacon Blue in my first week in university in Freshers Week for £2, I think the ticket was. And then obviously they broke and became household names. In Scotland, at least. In UK, Deacon Blue are quite a big band.
Yeah, absolutely. They did make it to New Zealand, I'm pretty sure. Yeah. But yeah. No, excellent. So I'm going to challenge you now, and funnily enough, this is called The Power of 3. It came, the inspiration from it actually came from that Transco project we did 24 years ago, where one of the team members asked us to look at 3 things we'd done well and 3 things we could improve on, and I kind of adopted that for State of Flux. So it's become kind of our continuous improvement mantra. So my challenge to you is, what are the 3 things that you've done and 3 things that you would improve? Ninian.
Yeah, it's a really good question. Being Scottish, we always look to the downside, not the positive side. So 3 things which I think we've changed for the better, and I'll take this company here in Vodafone. We changed our approach to health and safety with our suppliers. Pardon me, about 10 years ago, we had a large number of fatalities in the supply base. And that saved lives. Right? And we changed how we did it. We brought our suppliers together. We got them to collaborate around sharing not just best practice, but where they had incidents, where they had fatalities, and they shared. And it's transformed the number of fatalities we have. And I'm particularly proud of that. Working with our HR team to deliver that to supply base. I think that's what could be more important than saving someone's life, right? When they go home safe at night. It's pretty important.
Oh, I agree.
Second thing, which I think we've done well here especially, is we've created valuable relationships with some of our key partners. So we have really good connectivity with our key partners at the top of the house, CEO level, ExCo level, and management level. So I think that's important. And that relationship is also combined with, we have a great relationship with the government here in Luxembourg. Okay, it's a small country, but you still need to have a good relationship, and we have a good relationship, which is kind of important to us. And I think we've done well as creating a digital first mentality in terms of scorecards, digitization, what we do. Still more to do, but that digital first, why don't we do it digitally in a multinational company, seems to resonate really well with the company, our shareholders and investors, right? So that's important, I think.
Awesome, thank you. And three things that you would improve over your career?
Probably, maybe not in the right order, but we touched upon it earlier. Risk taking. How much risk are you prepared to take? And do you hang on to things too long when it's not working? If that makes sense. Yeah, no, it's not working. Let's give it another week or a month or something. So the ability to take risk, a little bit more measured risk, clearly, and shutting things down that don't work, I think I would like to do better. I think, like all CEOs, I probably want more change faster. I think sometimes we're too slow, and I'm too slow in getting stuff done. And that's maybe because I don't want to take so much risk. So I want everything perfect, 100% ready to go. So there's that piece. And then thirdly, I still don't think we're doing enough to bring in new innovative ideas and thinking to Vodafone, new suppliers, new ways of doing things. And whilst that's a shared accountability with product, technology, etc., I think it's incumbent on supply chain to bring the ideas, to bring the new suppliers, and to create a pathway so that they can very quickly become partners with Vodafone and we can get new products and services to market more quickly. And I'm struggling with that, and I think we can do better. Yeah.
Yeah. Interesting. Yeah, and we're certainly seeing lots of organisations grappling with that. Happy to kind of chat about it at the right time, but certainly I'm seeing segmentation of suppliers being a big gap for people. Everyone tells me they segment their suppliers, but actually when I drill into it, it's not done very well. And then equally, they don't do the treatment strategies. So they don't say for this segment or this sub-segment, what's the treatment strategy. So I know you've done some incredible work around Tomorrow Street and setting that up for your incubation of new suppliers. But actually, does it tie back to your supplier segmentation? And how do we use that to channel them into Tomorrow Street or other incubation channels and that treatment strategy? So, yeah, interesting. And so, given as I said, you've had an amazing career to date, still plenty more to do. What are three pieces of advice that you would give to listeners around that you've learned from your career?
Yeah, I think there's a couple of insights, but this is just how it's worked for Ninian, right? Might not work for other people, but you got to take a call. I think first thing for me is always set your ambition for the function. This is not personal ambition for the function in terms of targets. So set your ambition higher than the target you've agreed, right? And I think what that does is it sets the mindset around improving and doing better and better and beating the target, right? So psychologically for people here, we have targets and I set an ambition higher than the target because I know if we shoot for the ambition, we'll breeze through the target. If we shoot for the target, we're running right until the last minute to try and hit the target. So always try and set the ambition a little bit higher than the target. That's the first thing. For me, that seems to kind of work, yeah? Secondly, I think it's important that you know who you are yourself. In my career, I've tried to be someone else. You know, when I took a certain job, I tried to mimic or copy who they were, but it wasn't me, right? And when it's not you, it doesn't come across as authentic. You're not who you really, truly are. And sooner or later, that mask slips. So I just say, just be yourself. You have to be yourself and be comfortable with whoever you are. Now, that can That's not just about how you act and how you behave. It's who you are, whether you are. And as you know, Alan, I'm the sponsor for LGBT plus within Vodafone as well. So that's whether you're lesbian, you're gay, you're bi, or you're trans. It's important to be yourself, because once you're yourself, you actually perform better in the job, right? So it's easier to perform. I'm a big believer in that, Alan.
I completely agree.
And then the third one, you know what? And I'm not sure. I'm probably a year older than you. I'm 55 now, right? I never thought I'd be 55. I don't feel that I'm 55. But I tell you what, you got to love life. You got to have fun. And you got to remember it's not a rehearsal, right? So you get one chance, have fun, enjoy it. And, you know, if you're in a job that isn't working and you're not enjoying it, change, move, do something, change the dynamic. Because I would hate to be in a role, you know, for a number of years, which I just didn't like, or working for a manager who I didn't like, right? I think now as you get a little older, choose your managers, think it through carefully. But as I say, love life, have fun. It's not a rehearsal. It's my third goal.
Awesome. Thanks, Ninian. Thanks so much for taking the time. Really interesting as always. But yeah, I really appreciate, and I know how busy you are. So yeah, thank you for taking the time. It's been great to talk to you.
No, really great to speak to you, Alan, and hope to catch up soon, yeah?
Thanks,
All
Ninian.
right. And sorry, I
Speak
want to
soon.
apologise in advance for Scotland beating New Zealand in the Rugby World Cup final this year. Sorry about that, mate.
I'll just be pleased to be in the final. I'm not sure we're going to get out of our pool, actually.
We're not, for sure. Anyway, great to speak to you, Alan. Take care. Ciao.